The king's Indian defense is the best, most aggressive, and easy to play opening against d4. In this video, we'll be covering all the main variations. Later on in the video, I'll be telling you a little secret to make the opening 10 times easier for you and to increase your win rate. Let's begin. Here's the thing, we won't be memorizing moves, we'll be understanding the moves and the plans alongside them. First, let me introduce you to the fundamental position of the King's Indian defense. When white plays d4, we play knight to f6, and after white tries to take the center, we play the move g6, planning to fianchetto our bishop on this diagonal. After knight c3, we play bishop to g7. White tries to take the center, and we play d6. This is the starting position of the King's Indian defense. Now, this looks pretty weird, right? Why are we giving white the entire center? Well, let's understand. The most common move here for white is knight to f3. The purpose of this move is to control the center and to prepare castling in the future. Now we castle because it's important to safeguard our king before we start attacking. Now white can play bishop to e2. And again, bishop e2, bishop e3 doesn't make a big difference. The purpose is to castle. Now we play e5. Now we play e5. Wait, we are hanging a pawn? By the way, this was a move that Gary Kasparov and Bobby Fischer played. They were arguably the two best players of all time. What is this? Well, after takes, if white trades queens and thinks, oh, I have a free pawn, now I'm winning the game. Guess what? We can easily win back the pawn with compensation. So we'll actually have an advantage. Can you find the move? It's a cool tactic. The move is knight takes pawn, opening fire upon this knight over here. If knight takes, we just take back the knight. And guess what? Our pieces are about to get really active. I prefer black in this position because it's just so easy to develop all our pieces. We have a slight advantage due to our development. Another option white has is to push the pawn. Now we'll be coming across a pattern, we'll be learning a pattern which is really important in the King's Indian. When you see a pawn structure where white has three pawns like this and we have two pawns like this, the c5 square, this square is weak. If we put our knight there, it applies a lot of pressure on this pawn. This is a good square for the knight. We start with this weird move a5. a5, why do we play a5? Well, it's because we want to prevent b4 so that our knight lands on this square. If white prepares to play b4, we jump in with the knight, preventing b4. Soon we get to attack the pawn and we'll be developing our pieces very soon. Remember, if the bishop tries to take this knight, just play b6 and recapture, and you'll have a really solid position. Also, there's a secret way which not many players expect to attack the white king. You might think, how can I attack the white king? I mean, look at all my pieces, they are back here. Let me tell you something. Now, after white castles, we saw why d5 doesn't work. We saw why taking doesn't work. The best option is to castle. Now knight to c6. White will say, oh, I want to attack your knight. Where will it go? We'll move back calmly. Now white will want to, most likely, even if white doesn't move back and plays some random move, we can still continue with the same plan. And it's this secret plan which not many players expect that will get you many wins, especially below 2000. We move our knight back, and white, let's say white plays knight e1 to play f3 and make a pawn chain. We move our knight back. What are we even doing? Why are what am I saying? Why are our knights dancing around the board? What do they even want? Here's the thing, f5. This is the first move of the attack. If white captures, we capture back. Then we activate our knights and push in the center. We have an advantage there because we just have so much space. The best way for white to combat this is to play f3, solidifying that pawn structure. We play f4. Wait, what are we doing? Weren't we supposed to attack? I'll show you the plan, and you'll be fascinated. Your jaw will drop. Bishop d2. Now we bring our knight into the game. White will try to attack on the queen side, which 99.999% of players do, and it's actually the best way to play against the king's Indian. Now we play g5. What on earth is g5? We are trying to attack. You guessed it right. Even if white plays c5 or does any kind of queenside drama, we don't need to worry. If white succeeds in their attack, maybe they'll win a pawn or two. But when we succeed in our attack, we checkmate the king. Now we play h5, knight f2 to prevent the move g4. No problem. We'll play knight g6, slowly preparing g4. After rook c1, there's this creative idea rook f7 to bring the rook to the g file. But this bishop is in the way. So let's move it out of the way with bishop f8, defending this pawn. Now our rook lands on the g file and we'll be preparing the move g5. We can also sacrifice a pawn if we want to. In a nutshell, all of these pieces on the queen side come for an attack, and you will play g5, sacrifice a pawn if you need to, and attack the king. Phew, that was the most complex variation in the King's Indian defense, and we just completed it by understanding every move. Our goal there was to simply attack the White King by developing all of our pieces. Now, in the beginning of the video, I told you that there's a secret way to make the opening 10 times easier for you. That way is continuous development and aggressive chess. Let's see what it is with this variation. We start out with the regular moves. We play g6, fianchetto the bishop, and d6. We have already covered knight f3, but what about f4, which many players play to um, take control of the center? Now it looks really scary for us, doesn't it? When I first saw this position on the board, I was terrified. I thought white will push their pawns and will just steamroll our position. Let's see what happens here in reality. We castle, and after knight f3, e5. Wait, like the last variation, we are again kind of giving away our pawn. But guess what? This pawn is poisoned, which means you can't take it without getting into trouble. Let's see what it looks like. If white takes with the f pawn, we take back. When the knight captures, it looks alright for white, right? But now, rook e8, attacking the knight. After bishop f4, white will think, my position is okay. I love my position. I'm a pawn up. Yeah, I'm winning. But guess what? White is actually completely losing in this position as they'll be losing an entire piece. Can you find the move which wins a piece? This is hard to find. I couldn't find it. I had to take help of the engine. The move is c5, destabilizing this knight. If white pushes, let's say, knight h5, now this knight has been attacked two times, and in any case, we'll be winning the knight. Okay, that's what happens if white takes with the f pawn. But what if pawn takes here? Well, we can play knight g4. If white decides to trade, it's completely alright. What will happen is we'll take this pawn back and we'll play c6. Let me show you what that looks like. Now, if the knight jumps, we need to protect this, and in a nutshell, we just play c6, get our bishop out. We first take, get our bishop out. We are better here because this pawn is really weak. And if white plays b3 to protect, look at that bishop. Amazing. Let's see some other options for white. If white takes with the d pawn, what do we do in that case? We take back. Queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes. Same story. We play knight g4 with similar ideas. Now we can play c6, knight a6 to defend this square and develop our bishop to the d6 square while capturing this pawn, which is our top priority here. If white plays something like bishop f4, it's not a problem. We'll win it slowly. Bishop c6, rook e8. We have already won the pawn here. Now what else can white do? There's only one other legible option, which is to go here. And remember that crazy idea with a5 and knight to c5? Guess what? We are doing exactly that. Or instead of that, you can also simply take and play rook e8 first, and then you can play that idea. I'll show you on the board. This pawn is attacked, white will defend, no problem. Our knight comes here, and we will be getting the bishop for the knight. This was the f4 variation, which many players are terrified of. Let us move on to the third variation of the King's Indian defense. Instead of f4 or knight f3, white plays the move f3. Now, white's aim is to castle long, which is very scary for black because one of the plans you have is to attack on the king side, and white isn't even castling on that side. So, what's your plan here? Well, it's pretty simple. You castle, and after bishop to e3, you give up your pawn again. But this is not really a sacrifice. This time, if white takes and there's a trade, white wins a pawn, but you have compensation. You play knight to c6. You'll see that you will be able to develop very easily here, while white will usually struggle. Now, if there's a trade of rooks, this is just an example. I'll tell you the general idea in a few seconds. Knight d7, and then you trade, and after this move, you're better. But why are you better? Why did you move all of these pieces in the way that they moved here? Well, here's the thing. You want to ruin white's pawn structure by taking advantage of your piece activity. So here you will see that only two pieces belonging to white have been developed, while three pieces belonging to you have developed. And we also want to ruin that pawn structure. So here we have two doubled pawns, and our plan here is to play bishop to e6, and we'll be able to win this pawn very conveniently. After that, development for us is very free flowing. Our rook will come out, king will come out, we can push our pawns, etc., and target these two weak pawns. Now we'll be moving on to the fourth variation, which is also common. Some players don't play knight f3, f3, or f4. They play bishop d3. However, this is really convenient for us to play because we'll be following the knight c5 and a5 plan. How does that look like? Well, here we go. We castle first. After knight d2, remember, knight e2, I mean. If they play knight to f3, again we transpose to the classical variation, which is the first variation that we saw. Now, in this variation, white goes knight to e2 in order to play f3 as they are expecting this f5 attack. Here's what we do. We push the e5 first. This time white can take our pawn, so it's all good. Now if white pushes, look at this. You remember this? Knight goes here, pawn goes here. Before that, let's quickly see what happens if pawn takes. Let's say a move like bishop. Also, this is a bad move. Can you tell me why? What's the move? I've shown you this before. If the bishop goes to e3, you jump in with your knight to the g4 square and you try your best to trade the bishop for anything. And now if the bishop moves back, white simply loses a move. They're wasting time. They came here and then they moved back. Tell me, does that make any sense? From this position, you will play with opening principles bishop d3, c6, etc. One second, but why c6? See, we are understanding all the moves so that it's extremely comfortable for you to play. I'll show you another similar variation. Okay, let's say pawn takes, and castles. Now the best move is c6. Why is that? Well, look at this knight. We don't want it to jump to the d5 or the b5 squares. In order to restrict the knight, we are playing the move c6. Now our aim is to play bishop e6, knight d7, and we will prepare f5 slowly. Let me show you an example. We go here, let's say they develop. Maybe they can play h3 to stop us from jumping in with our knight. Then we can play knight d7 after bishop e3. We can also play knight e8, which is a very common idea here. And after any kind of development, f5 is the way. If pawn takes, we get the entire center. Otherwise, if f3, you know the drill. We push, push, get all of our pieces. Let me show it to you on the board. Oh, wait. the bishop is hanging. 1 second. Yeah. So something similar along the lines of, let's assume it goes something like this. The king moves, and we'll be bringing all of our pieces into the game. Rook f2, rook g2, rook g7 to bring the rook to the g file. We can also play queen to e8 and queen g6, or a combination of both the ideas. Eventually, we will push g4. That's the idea here. Okay, now if they push the pawn to d5, you know what to do, right? Knight c5, a5. First, you go with a5 because you want to prevent b4. If you go with knight d7 first, they'll just go b4 and you can't go to c5. White will try to form this structure, but that's not a problem. We can even move this knight to c5. Now we go f5, and after the trade, we move this knight to a6. Now both of these knights are aiming towards the c5 square, which is great. In a few moves, our aim is eventually to push this pawn, play bishop d7, put this knight on c5 or b4, get the rooks into the game, and push the pawn. We are better here. The two main ideas that you need to remember are the knight c5 a5 idea, which looks something like this, and the f5 idea with e4 and the attack on the king side. If you know these two, and if you keep developing your pieces and playing aggressive chess, you will be able to win way more games against d4. We'll now be looking at the final variation, which starts with g3. It can be played in different move orders, so white can play g3 on the first move, but all of them lead to similar positions. The intention is to play bishop g2, just like us fianchettoing the bishop along the diagonal. Here's the thing, we castle, and now we don't want this bishop to be so powerful as it's staring at our queen side menacingly. We'll play c6. In case the knight ever moves in the future, this bishop isn't attacking anything due to these two solid pawns. Now, let's say the castle. Our aim here is to play the move e5. We'll develop our pieces as usual, bishop g5, knight d2, etc. Knight d7, I mean. We bring our knight out. This is, I think, the best move order, which is most convenient. Now we play a5, or you can also. Actually, what happens if you go knight c5 here? You are right, b4. Let's prevent that. Even now, you can play knight c5 if a trade occurs. It looks like you have doubled pawns, but in reality, you have the bishop pair, therefore, you are better. You'll stop this passed pawn via queen c7, developing the bishop and getting the rooks into the game. I have provided the Leech's study link in the description below. So, in case you want to access any of these variations, which you must do if you want to learn them well, you can go to the link in the description and access the Leech's study through it. Thanks for watching. Train to win. Bye.